Well, I promised you more talk about the 49ers rookie class yesterday, and here it is. Jack Colletto, the jackhammer, fullback, linebacker, quarterback, running back, special teams ace, all four special teams units. I mean, this guy could do it all at Oregon State, and the 49ers are hoping that he's going to be a Swiss Army knife for them. Matt Barrows wrote the article that's up on your screen today on The Athletic, so make sure you go and check that out. And we had some fascinating new information about Jack Colletto, starting with this. Have a read of this little graph in the piece from Matt about the 49ers undrafted free agent. Adam Peters, our special teams coaches, loved him. Loved him. At Oregon State, Colletto was the lead blocker on kickoff returns and a good tackler on kickoff coverage. He could block punts like he did against Florida, the Gators' 5-yard line last season. Jonathan Smith, who's Oregon State's coach, said that Colletto was particularly good on his team's punting unit because he was a strong protector who could get downfield as fast as anyone. And they even ran fake punts with him because he was always a threat, Smith said. All right, so to me, this is good information because we know now that the 49ers special teams coaches got up on a table and started banging it for Jack Colletto. A lot of people are speaking of Kyle Juszczyk, and rightfully so, because Juszczyk is so versatile, former high school quarterback. I'll talk about that in a little bit in the Cleveland suburbs of Ohio. Juszczyk obviously lines up at fullback, but he's also in an H-back type of role. You will see him put his hand in the dirt at tight end, and he'll even see Kyle Juszczyk line up out wide. It is very typical of Kyle Shanahan's positionless skill position philosophy. So when people see somebody as versatile as Jack Colletto, who played something like 6 positions in college, they say, oh, that might be the next Kyle Juszczyk. But before we get ahead of ourselves, we have to consider how might Colletto be able to contribute to the 49ers immediately, since Kyle Juszczyk is under contract through 2025 and is showing no signs of slowing down. And the answer lies in that nugget from Matt in this article. It lies in that nugget in this article on special teams. Special teams. The Brian Schneider, 49ers special teams assistant, got up on the table and said, sign Jack Colletto out of Oregon State because he's so good on those coverage units. He can block on the punt units. I mean, Nick Bellore, who the Seahawks drafted in 2020, he's become a special teams captain for them. And Pete Carroll, obviously, those teams have always been good at special teams. Brian Schneider used to be the position coach there. It's no surprise that Schneider, now with the 49ers running that unit, wants somebody similar. So, this just opens a pathway to the 53-man roster for Jack Colletto that I think previously people didn't really realize was there. I think the assumption had been that this is somebody who's going to make it to the practice squad and be like a Josh Hokett, right, out of Fresno State a couple years ago, who was the 49ers emergency fullback in case Kyle Juszczyk ever got hurt, and they could use the practice squad call up so that Josh Hokett could play that fullback position instead of Ross Dwelly, whose body is better suited for tight end. This, though, with Jack Colletto seems a little bit different to me. Sure, long run, Kyle Juszczyk replacement, that's great. I think he needs to add about 15 to 20 pounds of muscle to be able to seriously do that. But there is greater short-term potential than there was with somebody like Josh Hokett. Josh Hokett, by the way, he's on the MMA circuit now. He's a professional fighter, lives in Las Vegas. I think he just had his first fight or he's training for it. I'll check on social media, update you on that. But anyway, you look at the special teams ability right here of Jack Colletto, the jackhammer. That might be what earns him playing time early, what gets him on the 53-man roster early. Because with that adaptability on special teams, he can also flex it to different offensive positions and in a pinch. And I don't think this would happen at the NFL level, but he played linebacker at the college level. That linebacker experience probably better suited to help him play well on special teams in the National Football League. Anyway, Jack Colletto's role is fascinating. Matt's article is really cool because he had to play all 4 special teams units. He played offense, several positions. He played linebacker on defense. These units, they make adjustments over the course of drives. So when the defense is out there, the offense makes adjustments on the sideline and vice versa. There was no time for Jack Colletto to sit in on those adjustment meetings. So thankfully, he's a really smart guy, mechanical engineering major. And Oregon State, smart program. They decided to assign a graduate assistant coach to be on Jack Colletto duty. So the assistant coach would sit in on the adjustment meeting while Colletto was obviously playing. Then when Jack Colletto would run off the field on a commercial break in between, switch between offense and defense, that GA would fill Colletto in on what the adjustments were. And they actually got the system down, and he had a hell of a career at Oregon State. 49ers brought him in as an undrafted free agent. All right. Speaking of the devil, or in this case, the devil is Kyle Juszczyk. Let's see what Kyle Juszczyk has been up to. This was over the weekend in Kyle Juszczyk's hometown of Seville, Ohio, or Medina County, Ohio. I've written an article about this, which I'll reference in just a second. But as you can see, Memorial Park, Seville, Ohio, home of the Cloverleaf Colts. That's where the Cloverleaf High School Colts play. That is Kyle Juszczyk Field, with a quote from Kyle himself: "Pursue victory with honor," and a flex from Kyle Juszczyk himself visiting the old high school field. Back in 2019, I wrote this. And, as you could see, Kyle Juszczyk wore number 2 in high school. You see the silhouette there. Well, on the left, you see big number 2. That's Kyle Juszczyk. Not 44. The 2 is Kyle Juszczyk. Kyle Juszczyk and here's the article. Kyle Juszczyk and Chris Snook. One became a Pro Bowl fullback. The other didn't, but both remember their epic high school rivalry. The epic high school rivalry on the field that is now Kyle Juszczyk Field, courtesy of Kyle's Instagram. Really cool stuff. I think that we need to get Kyle on the show to talk about his visit to the old field and maybe talk about this old epic rivalry. I mean, you read this story with Kyle Juszczyk and Chris Snook, who they were 2 larger-than-life high school players in that rural Cleveland area, and the 49ers are going back there to play the Browns this offseason. That should be a cool experience for Juszczyk. But both of these guys dominated their league. You could see they're bigger than everybody else on the field, a bunch of other skinny players, small-town America. Juszczyk and Snook, who went on to be part of West Virginia's program. These guys, I mean, they took over. You could read the newspaper clippings from back then. It's awesome. And, they were enemies in high school. They're now like each other, a lot of respect. Actually, when I wrote this article a couple of years ago, I got a hold of Chris Snook, and the 2 reconnected through the article, which was really cool. But they played an epic final game against each other. I mean, crazy stuff. Came down to a field goal, controversy, county championship, everything. So Kyle Juszczyk, back in the day, he was a JV quarterback who drew up a game-winning play on the dirt, by the way. He was skinny back then. Then he turned into a bigger player here by the end of high school. Well, Kyle Juszczyk, back in the day, that was his adversary. And I think that, since we're talking about Jack Colletto in this video, who might be the next Kyle Juszczyk, who might be a successor as far as that adaptability goes, not a bad time for Kyle to visit that old high school field that I was able to write about a few years ago. So be sure to check all that out because it is cool 49ers history. All right, that's it for me. You guys need to read about Jack Colletto from Matt Barrows, and you need to stay tuned because there's going to be more 49ers content coming a little bit later this afternoon. If there are any good questions or any good comments, I'll put them up right on the screen before I sign off. Corey Monroe wants Kyle Juszczyk on here. Andrew thinks that Colletto is going to be a star. He averaged 6 yards from scrimmage per game. Is it possible the 49ers keep Colletto as a tight end? Yes. He actually went to the Senior Bowl as a tight end. He picked up the position from Logan Paulson, former 49ers tight end. He wasn't, really polished at the Senior Bowl, but he wasn't terrible either. That's what Adam Peters said. So he's just becoming as adaptable as possible to maximize his NFL roster chances. So, and here's Ramos One saying the next juice, and we're talking about Kyle Juszczyk in the show. All right, good stuff. Mike said we're about to go live. We live. That's an old comment. Accidental click for me. Mike says Willis versus Colletto possibly for the 4th tight end spot. I'm not sure. It depends on where they think Coletto's going to fit in. Special teams obviously is going to be his calling card early on, so you got to find an offensive position for Jack Colletto to justify the 53-man roster spot, knowing that he's going to be primarily a special teams guy. So do you make that in the backfield? Do you make that a tight end? Do you make that a receiver and just have him technically in that receiver room as a 7th receiver so you can carry Braden Willis and you can carry Cameron Latu? I'm not sure. I'm going to have a lot on Braden Willis tomorrow, by the way, so stay tuned. It's really, really fun to delve into this 49ers draft class. All right. Good afternoon, DG. Everybody, thank you. Love you guys. We will see you very soon. Take care.